we have some other bloggers here, Mark DeCroza, John Seiler's blogs, my former registered colleague. One of the big bloggers in the county, Matt Cunningham from OC Blog, he likes to make fun of libertarians a lot lately, and he's been critical of me for being unduly critical of the Republican Party. He thinks it's unduly. I think it's more than duly. That's the word. And he writes here, as I've said before, I think the libertarians are wasting their time in the Libertarian Party. Libertarians wasting their time in the Libertarian Party. It will never be an effective vehicle for advancing their cause. Indeed, its only practical impact is to tip close races to Democratic candidates, thus accomplishing the exact opposite of their goal. Of course, the GOP is an imperfect vehicle for advancing libertarian ideas. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. And working with the GOP means libertarians would have to work with others who don't agree with them on every point. Of course, serious libertarians could remain in the Libertarian Party, but odds are American voters will never seriously consider a party that debated whether to nominate for president, new libertarian, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that's the argument we get. We're better off staying in the Republican Party. And that's what I did, and for a long time. So, and I want to explain why that's no longer a tenable option, as we all know this here. But I was at the Republican Party convention. And these folks are not. This isn't our home. I felt sickened by what I saw. I mean, it's kind of, I hate to use this term, but there's almost a quasi-fascist quality about it, with all the celebration of the military, of war, police state things, country first. How about freedom first? Did that ever go on any of them? I really, nobody mentioned freedom except in the terms of invading Iraq. You know, the numbskull Palin said the other day, when Hitler interrupted her, and she said, she said, oh, bless your heart. My son's in Iraq fighting for your right to say that. Are we really in Iraq fighting for the right as our government in Iraq fighting for our right to free speech? I mean, that's an absurd thing. But in the Republican circles, that's just that kind of talk passes for deep logic. I went over to, when I was in St. Paul, I went over to Minneapolis to the Ron Paul event there. I forget what it was called, something for liberty. Anyway, it was great. Campaign for it. You had 15,000 people there in the Target Center in downtown Minneapolis. One of the speakers just mentioned the term Austrian economics, and the place erupted in applause, spontaneous. Now that's a group to be around. You know, rather than mentioning, how many times did John McCain mention that he was a POW? I mean, at a certain point, after you mention it a number of times, it no longer is heroic. You're just kind of trading in it for cheap political points. So we got what I saw at the GOP convention, which is nothing new, but it's worse under McCain than it has been. Bush has outspent LBJ in percentage increase in government. We know that the debt has doubled. You know, the Medicare expansion, no child left behind. This bailout, what a great thing.
No dime left behind.
What's that?
No dime left behind.
Exactly. And then, you know, the eavesdropping, all the civil liberties. You know, when I've talked to Republicans about habeas corpus, and they mock that concept. Now, this isn't the average Republican. They all mock the whole idea. Every Republican I talk to, mainstream Republican, mocks the idea that civil liberties have been eroded at all under the Bush administration. That's absurd, and it shows a certain just lack of seriousness. When I write about police abuse issues, very rarely are Republicans on our side on this issue. In fact, if you look at on the California ballot, California Republicans have been pretty good on taxing and spending as they've been in a small minority, which I think is a good thing for them, which will probably happen for them at the national level. The Runner Initiative, which that just lock up more people, build more prisons, make it easier for prosecutors to convict people. That's their approach. So we know about the war issues and the drug war, gay marriage. I mean, all of a sudden, all these folks are really concerned about what other people do. Like it really makes any difference to any of us if our neighbors are married. I mean, in one of my columns, I wrote about how virtually every Republican I talk to on that issue, they end up relying on religious arguments and say, the Scripture says that homosexuality is wrong. Yeah, but Jesus never mentioned that, but he did mention that divorce is wrong. So let's start with the obvious one. Let's start by banning divorce. And then if you want to start talking about banning adultery, then you're really going to have problems with my Republicans. So they don't want to go there. Yeah, that's really.
So we're all in jail.
Exactly. John McCain said the other day, one of the few times you got anything right on the campaign, my fellow prisoners. He gets it. Maybe he gets it, but no, really, he's an insane man. And show, I love that show. Jon Stewart, he showed the clip from the debate. And you have Barack Obama sitting there, and you have McCain who's kind of walking around the periphery.
Yeah.
And then he put in a phony soundtrack. And he had John McCain looking for his little dog. And he said, come here, Cuddles. Come here, Cuddles. Or like when McCain, I loved in the debate when he referred to Barack Obama as that one. Saying, John, it reminds me of when we were kids, you run around the neighborhood, and that old cranky man down the street, and you're running around the yard, and I trampled my rose bushes. So that's what he reminds me of, the old cranky old street. So anyway, in the campaign, there's been serious anger issues, I think, with the McCain campaign and with his temperament. But anyway, joining the Libertarian Party has nothing to do with just a specific candidate, although I think that the McCain campaign just epitomizes everything bad that I've seen developing in the Republican Party. And anyway, I've made a lot of the criticisms that I read in the past in my columns about the Libertarian Party. Maybe I'm pretty slow. It took me a while to realize that there's really not much hope for the party. I have a lot of local Republican officials that I deal with that are pretty good people and have a lot of our principles. Think of some of the board of supervisors, some of the city councils, and I still, have a lot of respect for a lot of some, guys like Chris Norby, John Morlock, and taking on the pension issue. There's some good folks out there that are Republicans, but by and large, people of our thinking are not really welcome in the Republican Party anymore. I forget who it was. It was one of the big McCain supporters who was making fun of Ron Paul supporters and saying, there's a candidate of change that you could support. This was months ago, and I thought, they don't even want our vote. They're that stupid. So I'm not going to vote for it. How can we vote for somebody who disdains us and doesn't even want our vote? So never mind. Anyway, it took me a while to catch on that there's really no hope within the Republican Party. There are too many differences in ideas. My apologies for my past slams. Although, libertarians, like any political movement, have had its loony moments that they say. Libertarians win more elections, but, that's the goal here, I guess. But also, at least keeping the ideas out. That's the problem, is I see now we have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and the differences of ideas are around the margin, so somebody has to keep the flame alive. Another thing on local issues, even on issues like medical marijuana, who could possibly be opposed to letting sick people have marijuana? Could be opposed to having anyone have. What's the difference? And yet Republican elected officials are so angry and so bitterly opposed to this, and they're banning it city by city. And Democratic officials are banning it too, so they're all just trading in fear. So I've had enough. I think most Americans have had enough with the Republicans too, which, if the polls are any indication, November 4th is going to be a painful time for Republicans. I wouldn't suggest attending any Republican victory parties. So Libertarians need to offer an alternative, and let's see.
Or a shoulder to cry on?
Something, Anyway, so that's it. So I finally got wise, decided, it's pointless. I just don't think there's enough areas of common interest anymore. I think the differences have grown so fundamentally. They're so fundamental, the differences, that what else can you do? You can't be around working shoulder by shoulder with people who want opposite ends than what we want. We want more freedom, more liberty. They want more freedom only when it conforms to their cultural values. We want it in every area, and that's it. So I decided, okay, I told Bo over at our Grover Cleveland Social Club meeting, and Kevin, that I'd be glad to sign over for whatever it's worth, and John agreed also. also the Grover Cleveland Social Club. It's a party we have honoring the last great Jeffersonian Democrat, the last classical liberal president, and it's a pretty fun time. Wayne Root spoke at our last one.